Neto and I appeared from our adjoining rooms at the exact same time, a little past 7:30. We smiled at each other in a daze, as if being in this house was somehow the strangest thing we'd experienced yet. I let Bunny be on the bed. She was sleeping in a ball too soundly and adorably, looking like an artificial stuffy that you see sold in some kind of store in Tokyo. The smell of coffee and something sizzling peppered our nostrils. The broad, knotted, amoeba-like wooden table was adorned with a variety of plated pastries and breads and jams with meats and cheeses. Lucy was sizzling some sausage and egg in a pan. She finished and smiled at us, wearing a strapless black top that displayed her muscular, lean figure in what looked like a Hello Kitty apron on top of some jean shorts. I looked to Neto, who was visibly blushing, averting his eyes, trying to act cool, but with his hair in a froth, looking even younger than his glamour. Lucy pushed the contents of her pan into a bowl of what looked like sticky rice.
Hi there. Sleep okay? Coffee? I have some good black tea as well. Herbal too. There's orange juice over there, as well as some guava juice.
Not unlike our first meeting, we sat down, looking chastened. Teacher was talking. I took a breath, gave her a smile, something I wasn't accustomed to doing with much fluidity, but I oddly felt like doing it, and then poured myself some coffee. I poured a cup for Neto so he'd stop sitting so strange and occupy himself with something.
He's still out, I'm afraid. Don't know when he'll be back.
Oh, I inquired almost inaudibly.
He goes to the strip club when he's in a mood.
Neto and I eyed each other. Somehow I hadn't anticipated growing more uncomfortable.
Not far from here. There's one he likes that's women and then late, or early, I should say, men. Sorry, there I go again. I always have to say something embarrassing off the bat with someone I don't know well. Although Nino and I have been practicing radical honesty of late, more so since I learned that term. Very modern, don't you think? Honesty, but radical? Feels redundant, but I get it.
I think I swallowed so hard it made a noise. Neto barely looked up. He took a sip of his coffee.
Anyway, Nino, sorry I never could stand to call him by his given name for reasons you may or may not know of, so Nino is my name for him.
Lucy sat, still wearing her apron. She drank some of her tea, chipped off a piece of bread and spread some mascarpone on it. She looked in thought as she chewed.
He's always had sociopathic tendencies. I don't think he was born that way. I think he was made that way by, well, you know now.
She nodded and smiled to Neto.
So anyway, I think when he would satisfy his vampiric urges, naturally that calmed him, those parts of him. But then we met, and I wouldn't be with anyone who preyed on anyone innocent, since that wasn't my... And so he changed, or at least he began to change. He's like a child. Emotions destabilize him in somewhat mysterious ways, but also he's a bit of an actor, so you're unlikely to see much if you're lucky. I'm sure he made a good show yesterday. Before you came, we had a big fight. Funny timing. He would never be violent with me, but he can be quite scary, which is silly to say about a fellow vampire, I guess. Sorry for the overshare, as they say, but again, I think it's necessary to make my amends.
Lucy spread some additional mascarpone on the bread. Neto looked like he had relaxed a little.
So yeah, you being here, as great as it is for both of us, it sent him in a bit of a tailspin last night. We didn't fight, or we would have maybe, but then off he went. I don't know what it is. He likes the objectification, the subtle depravity, perhaps. I tried going with him once, and although some of the dancers did have some style, some technique, I was a trained dancer, like I mentioned before. I found it pretty dull, melancholy even, especially the lighting. But anyway, that's who he is. What does it have to do with sociopathy, you might ask? Perhaps nothing.
And you trust he doesn't partake in vampiric, urges? Lucy looked like she was about to laugh.
Oh, yes. I would know. I would feel it, actually. Our magic is a little binding. It has been for some time. He knows that.
Neto shifted again. I could understand why this statement made him a little uncomfortable. And he would feel you even if you were away from him. She smiled knowingly. I looked out the open patio door as it was a clear blue sky, soft morning light. Nice weather, I've noticed.
Certainly is.
She averted her gaze. So much for radical honesty. Well, speaking of, if you don't mind a bit of morning meditation, I'll just take my coffee and a bit of croissant, if that's all right. When I made my way several paces out, I peered back and found Neto hadn't moved much, though he seemed to be inspecting the table for something to eat. Lucy looked mute as well, taking him in like a dish she shouldn't indulge in, one that she was allergic to but that she wanted. But perhaps this is all exaggeration on my part. Bunny had skipped down the stairs and past the table, evidently, as I found her not a few feet away from me, chomping on some root below a shrubbery for breakfast. Muddying her little nose, she then flopped down in the shade of a large potted plant. "Morning," I said to Bunny. "Morning," said Dracunin from the side of the house. I couldn't help shifting my gaze worriedly back through the open doors, thinking we'd catch them both in an embrace, but my shifting gaze was the only thing to have worried about. Dracunin noted it and gave an almost imperceptible tilt of his head.
"Sleep all right? Bed isn't exceedingly large. We gave Neto the smaller one."
"Perfectly fine. I'm used to confined spaces anyway. I was at sea for many years."
"Yes, I remember."
He didn't look like a man who had been up all night. Perhaps he had another residence to freshen up. He was dressed impeccably, as he often seemed to be, light blue cotton shirt with a little anchor on it, fashionable jeans, and ratty flip-flops, rather an aberration. I almost wanted to comment on them, try this radical honesty thing.
"I'm sure Lucy told you where I was. You probably both found it curious."
No skin off my back. I didn't think this was the right expression.
"Yes, well, constant doses of embarrassment and humility, that's what I signed up for. Still, I'd be lost without her. I'm sure you can relate."
Yes, well, that can be taken a step too far.
"Certainly, apologies. Don't mean to compare apples and oranges. Some things are fated is all. Sounds like you've given yourself to a lot of surrender. How is that going? Abstinence and all that. Sobriety, I mean."
Takes practice, keeps one present. Hurts, nonetheless.
"And do you really think it hurts less?"
No, of course not. Some will say, but that's not the point, is it?
"Yes, quite right. I have to remind myself of that. Lucy does, obviously, but I'm getting better at, well, like you say, not being so reliant. Both of us have been quite more apart of late. That's been good for us, even as it's been necessary for our plans. Do you have any residual pain from the..."
Not really. Sometimes I think I do, but not to worry.
"But I do worry. I was a little afraid of you back in the day, more afraid of Agatha, envious of your relationship."
Well, I won't get into that, but it wasn't the relationship you'd imagine. More confused than anything. As I recall, you stood apart, except for Gree. You'll excuse me if I still have questions.
"Perfectly fine. I owed everything to Gree. You know, I barely recognized who I was before I met him. He undid years of damage I find it difficult to speak of. We faced each other one last time, and then I knew that if I faced him again, one of us would pay dearly. I like to think his friendship was earnest, that he wasn't under his influence. I don't think he was, but I'd be shattered to know if so, that I'd somehow been manipulated yet again, reducing my faith in humanity ever more."
In humanity?
We can't really set ourselves apart, can we? What's the point? Where does it get us? Lonely, that's what. "Hello, Rabbit. How are you?"
Bunny stared at both of us, looked a little worried perhaps. She skipped off and across and then around and into the house.
"Well, hardly the first to react to me in such a fashion."
Dracunin smiled. How much older are you than Neto and Agatha?
"Oh, a few hundred, maybe less. Why?"
And where is she?
"Our originator. I think she's in the other place." She's not dead, but she's not here, and if she does appear by the phases of the moon, it's quite rapid. Anyway, this is theoretical, not only my own. The RUS has helped with that.
By the moon, you say?
Yes, the moon is in a way the other place, symbolically speaking. Have you never heard of this? I'm surprised, but this is getting a little in the weeds. Do you mind if I go in and say hello, have some coffee? I haven't slept.
I followed and observed the three. Neto's armor dissolved when Dracunin, a.k.a. Nino, came in. Lucy and he had a quick kiss hello, and he even made Neto laugh a little. Lucy blushed, a little overcome. It was inarguable the attraction she felt for Neto, the fidelity, even respect she had for her husband. Speaking of radical honesty, I couldn't help but realize that her kiss with Neto was unlikely a secret between the two married folk, which seemed to make Neto all the more flustered should he realize that fact, which I think he had. Their discomfort, the electricity in the air, a little intoxicating, gave me a rare pang of wanting to drink for merry reasons, but it soon passed. I had some more coffee, stuffed my face with some delicious breads and jams and meats, and a little sticky rice with egg, and soon was delightfully absorbed in the warmth of the lake breeze and the sweetness of the vampiric company, which filled my heart quite unexpectedly, like we were having a family reunion. I could almost feel Agatha's hand on my shoulder, her pride beaming from somewhere mysterious. The other place, Dracunin had said. Could Agatha have gone there? Could she have been communicating to me from the moon in the compound by some kind of magic? The thought ran up and down my spine with excitement, but also terror, sadness. I had another bite of croissant with mascarpone. The plan was a man. His name was Gree. But where was Gree? It seemed they had an inkling, but we would have to wait for the right phase of the moon. I went to bed early, a little purposefully, and left the three downstairs alone, drinking wine on the patio and then in the main room. The laughter bubbled up to the top floor like Prosecco. It quieted, then I heard bedroom doors close. I don't know if I was or wasn't surprised when Neto appeared on my adjoining balcony. For a second it felt like it was Simon there, a youth looking for advice. I had to remind myself that Neto, youthful as his glamour often was my senior. Have a good time? I tried to ask as neutrally as possible. Neto sighed.
Oh, yes. A lot of complicated feelings, but yes.
Complicated by you or the situation?
Oh, well, Harry, if I had that kind of grasp of my feelings, I would be something other. I would not feel like a roi sans royaume.
It feels nice to have something to fight for, though, I bet.
Oh, I've had something to fight for, Harry.
I mean, fight isn't the right word. A joyful struggle. That's love, isn't it?
Perhaps. Perhaps. It's not so simple, Harry. They are linked in a way that is troublesome. His health, perhaps his moods are dependent on hers perhaps on his. And let's not mention the weather, actual, not metaphorical.
Yes, but it's rather nice now. We looked out onto the lake, a warm breeze. The trees across the way leant on each other like singers around a campfire.
Yes, now is the operative word.
Now is all we have, Neto. I've learned that again and again and again. Slowly you have to surrender to that wisdom.
Yes, I know. Thanks, Harry. You are relieved, I should say, convinced.
Mostly. I'm reserving fullest judgment, but it's piecing together. Gree was much more in charge. He did well to make us forget his own involvement. The one who pulls the strings is skilled at being invisible. He chose a puppet master for his puppet. But who is his own master?
Yes. Do you fear him, the one behind Gree?
Or her? Yes, sure, of course I do. I fear an end, just like everyone. I fear the unknown. I fear I won't see Agatha again. The rabbit jumped on my lap. She had the odd ability to comfort me just at the right time. Then a soft, warm rain, but we stayed outside for a while and let it us baptize. A few more laughs cascaded upwards from downstairs, and then a pregnant silence. as if something new was being hatched.